welcome, welcome. I want to welcome Nick, who is a very, very successful voiceover artist, has had longevity in the field, and he's also my teaching partner for voiceover, which is really great because Nick's on one end of it, the actor, the talent, you guys, and then I'm the one on the other end of it who's listening to everything. So we're going to give you great information today. And Nick, as an introduction, maybe I'll start with, everyone started in voice. You know, I think people who still haven't gotten into it are maybe a little afraid. Maybe it feels daunting. And you started from nothing. Like, why don't you tell people perhaps your path, and that it can, we know that it can be done because we teach people all the time and they are out there doing voiceovers. So
yeah, no,
tell us your experience, or from your experience, what you would relate to people.
Well, there are always going to be people that will tell you something is nearly impossible to do. When I first started, I was cautioned by many people who told me, you know, there are only a handful of people that make a living at this. Well, the nice thing is I'm one of the fingers on that hand now, you know, so you have to be aware of what the competition is. You need to know what your odds are, and that will help inform a decision as to how you will proceed. You have to have a business plan. This is a business. You're starting a business, and you need to have a very clear path forward. And I think that's what's tough for a lot of people is it seems unstructured. It is highly structured. You just need to pull back the curtain and go, oh, that's how it works. But it takes tenacity, it takes consistency, it takes commitment, and it takes a discipline, plain and simple. You have to do this every day in some way, shape, or form. If you worked for Bank of America and you didn't show up for 5 days and then you go back to your office and they, who's that sitting at my desk? You know, well, that's the person we hired to replace you because you weren't doing the job. You have to do this every day. I'm not saying, you know, it's got to be a slog. No, you just have to be consistent every single day moving toward your goal.
So we will talk about a plan for people, but I would like to bring up that there are so many voiceover breakdowns out now, not like, besides an on-camera casting director, I'm a voiceover casting director. So I do not put my breakdowns out on the traditional breakdown services. But what's happened now is there are tons of voiceover breakdowns being put out over breakdown services, one being LA Casting. So much so that LA Casting has a dedicated section of their breakdown service just for voiceover, for us putting it out and for you guys submitting your reads. So many agents now are calling themselves voiceover agents, and when they sign you, you know, they say, oh, we can also represent you for voiceovers. So I really want you to be ready for all these opportunities because they are out there. And, you know, we know there's a horrible strike going on now. We are in solidarity with the writers and the theatrical contract. But while this is happening, you can definitely still be doing voiceover, especially commercials. First thing is you have to have a solid foundation. And if you're an actor, you know, you have a leg up because it does take acting, but then there are differences in your voice acting and your regular acting. And when you teach people, Nick, like, let's both talk about, like, what do you think some of the things, tools that they have to use to transfer their acting to voice acting?
Well, even within the on-camera and theatrical world, there are different levels of energies, different levels of physicality. If you're doing something for film, everything plays so too much with the face because an eyebrow raise on a big screen is a 3-foot move, and it's like, oh my gosh. So learning the differences between those and live theater, you have to be bigger and broader because you want to play to the back of the room. So there are differences there already. But knowing the difference between on camera and voiceover, because you don't have the benefit of people seeing what you're doing, doesn't mean they can't hear what you're doing physically. And I know a lot of people don't quite get that until they get it. And there are things that you can do in delivering your voiceover reads that the physicality, the nature of it, a lot of times when people first get behind a microphone when we were doing in person, it would look like their hands were stapled to their thighs. And it just draws the energy down. And people need to realize there are certain things, different aspects of how you apply your skills in voiceover. And it's kind of like the difference between tennis and racquetball. They're similar in a lot of ways. They're very different in a lot of ways. And I happen to love playing both. It's just you have to remember which game you're playing at any given time.
And we can still see that we teach on Zoom because that's how you are auditioning from home. You're not live auditioning in a casting director's studio anymore. And we can see, I think one of the things, yeah, if you're just like this, if you're just not paying any attention to the mic, if you're just blindly saying your words, there's a relationship with the mic. And you can, for instance, use your mic to gear your message towards the mic, or you can be intimate and go closer to the mic. Or if it's a bigger read like radio, you can work past the mic so you have more space and room. So we see all that. We're very close up on you when you're on Zoom, and we do see all that, and it does make a difference. So relationship to the mic makes a difference. Understanding the copy, which Nick was starting to talk about, definitely makes a difference. Like if it's a close-up on food, naturally you would work closer to the mic and it wouldn't be so big. If it's a big restaurant scene and poppy music and bright colors, it would be a bigger read. I'm sure you can elaborate on that a little more, Nick, because
sure. Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't always take into account. And for me personally, when I do a read, especially in the audition process, because it's incumbent upon us to make those decisions based on the specs that we're given. And sometimes they're kind of vague. Sometimes they're very specific. I read one piece where the line was only 1/10 of the length of the description to how to deliver the line. However, yeah, but those are some of the things we have to deal with. But how you approach your copy, for me, I'm very visual. So in my mind, I will set up a shot list for the script. So I have something that I'm working off of. And I think a lot of people forget that. And one of the things that, well, we teach all the time is the copy breakdown. We have a whole series of steps to go through. And I rely on that even to this day. I mean, I teach it all the time, and you'd think I'd have it committed to memory. But, you know, I've made guacamole, I can't tell you how many times. And how could I forget the cumin? But I did. You know, so if I'm not hitting on all aspects of a read, I'll go back to my copy breakdown and go, that's what I forgot. So it's very important to really understand your copy and take the time. Don't just rip and read. You know, take the time, live with the script for a minute or two before you really go in to read on it.
I know when, as a casting director, I'm the one who receives the reads, such as Nick's reads, Nick's representing the talent here. And Nick just mentioned, don't do it quickly. And so it brings up that we have to hear you connected to the message. Very, very important how you're going to decide how to connect to the message. And one of the things is using a smile, and you can use a smile in so many different ways. You can use a smile to be bright and perky. You can use a smile to just be pleased, to be positive.
You can even
What other
use
ways?
a smirk to be a little sarcastic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To be knowing. So you need to, after you do your read, you know all your tools, and after you do your read, like Nick says, listen, step away for a bit, and then listen. And once you have the emotional feel of the spot figured out, and you step away from your read, listen back and see if it has met the emotional feels that you want it to meet. Very
I think a lot of,
important.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of times I think talent, they have the um, priorities somewhat skewed toward the job, but the real job is actually auditioning. When you're successful at doing that, you get to work, you get booked, you make money. And to think about the job only is to put the cart before the apple cart before the horse. You need to get good at auditioning. And the biggest thing, more than anything, confidence. You need to step behind that mic and know what you're going to say. I very seldom question what I'm going to do in my approach. I just get up, I get behind the mic, and I know I've been doing this for a while, so I feel comfortable in what it is that I do. Do I do everything? No, you can't. You'll dilute yourself to the point where nobody will hire you. You can walk it right up the middle and be as milquetoasted as you want, and you won't get noticed.
True.
Take a stand, come up with a brand, decide who it is and how you fit in. And a lot of times, I actually had somebody yesterday who I was speaking with, she was referred to me, and she said, you don't sound like I thought you would because I listened to your demos, and I said, no, this voice doesn't work. But I know how to use the mic, and I know how to use my voice behind that mic. And so it's a very different thing when you're in the booth actually recording. And that comes from practice. That comes from, again, confidence. The more you do something, the more confident you are in your ability to do so. So practice, practice, practice.
Someone said they took our classes and they're phenomenal. It scrolled. I didn't see who that was, but thank you very much. So when we meaning the casting people, get the reads, we have to decide who we're going to send on to our clients. And, we could get 300 reads, but they won't tolerate listening to 300 people. So it's our job to hone it down. And first of all, if someone totally isn't connecting, they're out. And then we keep honing it down. And then at the very end, it could come down to how good the sound is. And you don't need to spend a lot of money on equipment or on a booth. And Nick can tell you, to start out, you don't have to spend a lot of money.
No, you don't. I think, and to that end, there are several things that I will say. When you say you don't need to spend a lot of money, you also shouldn't spend too little. Getting a blue snowball or a Yeti or something like that is not going to cut it. You need to have what the industry term is broadcast quality. Now, broadcast quality doesn't mean you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You can get broadcast quality. You can get a $150 Rode microphone or any number of different mics that are out there, and they've come out with some really good ones that aren't too terribly expensive to mimic the ones that are $3,000 and $4,000. But having the ability to record, I've had a home studio for over 15 years, and prior to that, I owned a studio facility for many years. And when COVID hit, I was uniquely positioned to take advantage of that situation because I already had a home studio. And that became the industry standard now. So they expect you. There used to be a time when if I got a last minute audition and I was out doing something, I could run into my car, grab my phone, do a quick audition and send it off. That won't fly now. They want to hear what your record environment is, because chances are they will be linking to you via Source Connect or ISDN or IPDTL or whatever the case may be. And so they need to know that the sound quality of your room is good enough for broadcast. But it's not
Yeah.
that daunting.
Like when I put a breakdown out, I will say, if my client's in New York, like I'm working on something now where my client's in New York, the studio's in New York. So I'll say, if you are talent outside of the New York area, you must have final record quality sound, and that means soundproofing too, guys. Oh, do you hear the fire engines?
That's what you
Yeah,
can't have that in the background.
exactly. I'm in a booth.
Couldn't have timed that better if you wanted to.
With paid Source Connect. And then I listen, and there was LA agent, and one of the people who was very good, but their sound, it sounded like they were in a room like I'm in. There was a lot of echoing. So I emailed the agent and I said, they're not gonna, this person's good. Can he send something with better quality? Because the request is that they have to have final quality recording sound, and they're going to hear this and they're going to say, well, this isn't final quality. And you might say to yourself, oh, well, this is the audition, it's not the final. Well, it's part of what they're listening for. So I said to the emailed and I said, this isn't final quality, you know, can they redo it? And the agent actually said, no, I'm sorry, this person doesn't have any kind of equipment and they live in Los Angeles. And I said, please look at the notes. This is, the original record is out of New York, so this person can't be up for it. So the sound of your audition is very important. And sometimes people, like I know there are people who work a lot and there's something that they didn't do. I don't know whether they were rushing, but the sound is very, very, very low. Even when I turn it to the highest, I can't hear it. So Nick, why don't you talk about, you know, what people should do to check before they send it in to avoid something like that?
Absolutely, and it's it even showed up yesterday to go, and I just thought, you know, let me take another listen, just make sure everything's fine, and I missed an edit right in the middle of the whole darn thing because I'd gotten a phone call halfway through while I was editing, and I thought, oh yeah, I got it all set. Nope. Take the time to QC your own stuff before you send it off and make sure it is of the kind of quality that you want representing you. You want to send in things, and I've actually had in the past where a client has actually used my audition, and I didn't even have to do a session. They just paid me because they ran with the audition. So that won't happen if you don't have broadcast quality. You must have broadcast quality. It's, well, when you're auditioning your voice and your read and all of that, they're also auditioning the sound of your room.
Yeah. And when it comes down to honing it down to 30 from 300, and it's coming down to the last hone down, if someone doesn't have the right quality, and we're not given a lot of time to do this, I'm not going to have time to email your agent, to email you, to redo it, send it back to me. Unfortunately, you're one of the people that will go in the no maybe file because I'm pressed to eliminate, to keep eliminating. Jamie is remote, and Nick, she messaged me a question. We could both answer this. I'm going to have you answer it. How many voiceover projects record remotely versus in studio nowadays? You can answer, and then I'll put my 2 cents in.
You know, having worked from home for over 15 years, I would say prior to COVID, it was probably about a 60-40, maybe 65-35 split where I was working from home the majority of time. And because I also have a lot of clients around the country, which is something else a lot of people don't consider. There's a huge market out there. Now I would probably say it's 95-5.
I would agree. Like my clients, if they're in LA, they give the talent the choice whether to come into the studio or remote. But most of my projects are remote. I would also say 95% of them are remote. So if the person is asking this question because they're wondering whether they don't have to have the quality, I would say don't think that way. You must have the quality to be on the right path to work a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like if you don't have the ability to record from home, you're going to eliminate yourself from the pool by all, and you're not going to make a living off of an opportunity to work, even if you worked every 5% job out there. Probably not going to be enough to make it. You have to be able to work at any time. That's the other thing too is because I have worked from home for so long, probably an 8 o'clock East Coast record session, which means 5 a.m. my time.
Ooh.
I don't mind that. I hope they want something deep, but
I was going to say, how do you prepare for that when it's so early in the morning?
I'm an early riser anyway. I'm usually up at 5 o'clock most every morning, so that's not hard. For me, it's usually having a warm drink. I usually start off immediately after waking up, drinking about 20 ounces of water. And that just kind of helps to get things lubricated and hydrated. And then, and that also helps with not having mouth noise and things later on in the day because you are drinking water, if your mouth is pasty, is going to do you absolutely no good. It'll take 2 hours to be absorbed into your system. So that's not you need to think ahead and hydrate prior. I try to stay away from coffee if I'm working right away. I will have coffee most mornings if I'm not working immediately first thing in the morning. If I have a 9 a.m. session, I'll have coffee at 5:30. Yeah, really, it's just a matter of staying hydrated and warmed up. And there are things that you can do. There are exercises. I use singing straws. That's another, it's almost like a little vocal gym. So just to keep your voice in shape. And heck, if you do that, you can work right up until the day they plug you in the ground. So,
Jamie,
and even then, run a microphone cable just in case.
Someone asked about, and it went up too fast, the difference between paid Source Connect and something.
Oh, and yes, there's an unpaid version of Source Connect. It is not as reliable and trouble-free. There are two versions of Source Connect. You can get Source Connect Now and Source Connect Pro. Pro is really for studios if they have more than one room running simultaneously. They need to have a Pro version so they have multiple access. But you don't need that. Just the regular paid Source Connect account is fine.
Oh, that's good because we asked for just paid Source Connect. We haven't asked for Pro. So those of you who are who want to get started, it is possible. People get started every single day. Go to info@voiceprintwest.com. You can see tons of demos of people who have started with us and who have spread out their wings. In fact, someone just sent me a demo. I CC'd you on my, and it was fantastic. And when she started with us, she was like all over the place, like not focused, didn't have a brand. She has an accent. She didn't know what to do with herself because of this accent. And she is ended up now absolutely with the most beautiful demo of all kinds of things that her accent can be used for. And confident and on target, focused, it can definitely happen. We do have a core Kickstart that starts next Wednesday, the 13th. And again, you can email info@voiceprintwest.com. And, you know, when we first started this, it was like 5 weeks and more money. And we discussed it and we said, no, people just want to know if this is for them. And we have the most comprehensive workbook that Nick came up with from all his years. And so if you do want to get started, it is possible, and it's possible starting next Wednesday.
And I think to the point that you made with this person you were just speaking of in her demo, the
I was
hardest
blown
thing for
away.
oh, she did a great job. I had so much fun working with her on that. And the thing that is always the toughest thing for us when we get started is figuring out where you're going to work and what you're going to do and how you fit in. But as soon as you know that, it becomes very clear and it becomes very easy and you become laser focused on doing just that.
Yeah, and we do get you there later on in our branding and demo prep workshop. But it brings up something that I need to caution everyone about. So what I said is not misinterpreted. Nick does not edit a demo so much that you sound so good and you can't live up to what you're doing. I mean, she could do what I heard on this demo. Talk a little bit about that, Nick.
Sure. I think, for me, your first demo will always be your first demo. And I promise you, nobody will ever hear my first demo again. It's buried in a little tin box in the backyard someplace in Burbank, and I'm not going to tell you where. But, when I listen to it, I go, oh my gosh, I went on to work? That's amazing. But hopefully there's going to be growth and you continue to get better and leaps and bounds will come around when you start working. But for me, I try not to over direct a talent in the session. What needs to be on the demo is what a producer can expect walking in the door. It's kind of like retouched photos in a headshot. If you give them a highly retouched photo, when's the person in this picture going to show up? Like, well, I'm right here. No, you're not. This isn't the same person. You want to make sure that you can duplicate anything that's on your demo. The other thing is just again, my personal opinion and philosophy in producing demos, I try not to overproduce them to the point that what happens is if you have this really gee whiz bang, incredible demo that every piece is just wonderful. One, you're starting out. People know you haven't done 15 national commercials. It's just the way it is. So let your demo reflect where you are, grow with your demo, obviously change it as you get better and things come your way. But also if you overproduce a demo, it really raises the expectation level of the person when they walk in. So man, you got to come in with sparklers and Roman candles if you do something like that. So just be aware of, try not to overdress it too much. Just let it be a really good, accurate reflection of where you are right now. You'll get better. You'll have better demos down the road. A demo is a living thing. It never is a finished product. So
someone's asking what program to use for recording voiceover.
It depends on what your platform is, if it's Mac or if it's PC based. Now, that being said, I used to recommend Twisted Wave for Mac. Twisted Wave now has a PC version, which I just recently bought because I have Twisted Wave on my iPad and my iPhone. And it's very, very intuitive. It's very easy to work. It's very similar to the other programs I've used. I've also used SoundForge for years and years, and we used to use that also in the in-person workshops that we would do with Terry. Terry had that on her computer, and it's a good, simple program. And you don't have to spend a ton of money. I mean, somebody told me they bought a version that was $400. I said, what? No, you don't need the 747 when all you need is a single engine Cessna. You're good. Yeah, and there are people that will go out and buy, $1,000 mics and $500 preamps, and that's great. If you have the money and you want to do that, great. You don't need a Lamborghini to drive to McDonald's, but some people do.
Yeah.
So, you can do any of that. But I think really, um, yeah, just putting together a demo and getting started, don't overthink it and don't make it a bigger deal than it is. A lot of people after we're done with the record session, they go, well, that was really easy. I go,
Yeah.
as it should be. I'm not pushing you hard. You're just doing everything you're capable of doing. That's all. That's all. That's what we need. So it's really
Yeah.
simple.
And when you start with our core Kickstart, you don't need equipment yet. That's the whole idea of the core Kickstart. You find out what equipment you need. Some people in it do have equipment, and everyone starts sharing what their equipment is, because you're gathering information at that point and working on mic. When you don't have a mic, you'll work just something simulated as a mic, just so you get the feel of the relationship. And you get started with a really solid foundation, how to orchestrate your voice, how to, as Nick mentioned, analyze a piece of copy, how to put your voice to that. Is your voice doing what you think, what you want it to do? So many times, we'll say, sound friendlier. You just sound flat in information. Oh, I thought I was sounding friendly. So for someone professional to point that out, and then for you to hear that and do it again and be directed, it's just worth. So it's the only way to do it. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah. And also when we get going with the core Kickstart, I give everybody an equipment list that's 4 pages long with all kinds of things. It can be a little overwhelming, but I can, help you out with that. A booth plan if you want to build a little booth at home. It's too terribly expensive and it's easy to do. There are things that we can do to help get you started. The only one thing I will tell you is if you want to take the class, those are things you can be thinking about. The one thing I would love for you to do, though, is just prepare to be standing when you're doing your reads, because the energy is totally different. I never sit when I do voiceover. I'm always standing behind the mic. Even if it's a 3-hour session, I'm always standing behind the mic. Um, I, I can't do it any other way. Plus, I use my hands. They're always moving. And I had to crop myself so that my hands wouldn't be too much of a distraction. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're in a comfortable position. But I will tell you, it will change the nature of your energy and your reads if you're standing. So that's the only thing I would say is just if there's any prerequisite, just have yourself set up in a way that you can stand while you're doing the Zoom session.
Fantastic. I think we've covered a lot here. So if you do want to join and you do want to get started, don't be afraid. Take advantage of all those breakdowns out there. There's all different ways to have a voiceover career. Like someone like Nick, who can do announcers really, really well and strongly. It's true, when you're an announcer type person, you can get large accounts with ongoing spots. So there's that kind of work. And then there's like the stuff I do is right now I'm working on, well, one of the projects was not very real. But it was definitely someone who sounded approachable, had a point of view. And the other 2 projects I'm working on are very personality driven. So, that's going to be one project. It's not like 5 spots in that one. It's not a campaign with your voice. But these people who book this, book that over there and that over there and that over there. So there's that kind of work.
And you also, I've been fortunate enough. Next month, I enter my 27th year of working with a contractor that we do things for the Department of Defense, and that came out of a phone call. And so there's a lot of people don't think of narration. That has been the bulk of my work. I would probably say percentage-wise,
Yeah.
easily 50% of what I do, easily. And it's union work. So luckily, I've been able to qualify for insurance and build my pension and everything else. So
Which
these are
union
things.
does that go under, Nick?
That one initially started out as an after contract because it was
Okay, so it's
video. Yeah, it was video way back when,
yeah,
and then it transferred over to SAG-AFTRA, obviously after the.
right.
But yeah, it's a great, it's a huge part of the business that a lot of people don't think about, and you can get some good regular work there.
Yeah. Sometimes I go to, there's a voiceover conference that I go to, and it came to my light. I was enlightened to see how many people are making money on medical
And they have the money to
instruction.
spend.
Yeah. So there's narration, there's medical, there's all kinds of streaming now. So
Audiobooks, promos,
yeah,
cartoons, games.
don't be
There's so many
afraid.
different aspects of it. Yeah.
We're here to make it easy for you. Hopefully, you found information that makes you a little more comfortable with it, and we enlightened you a little bit. If there's any questions, anything more that we didn't cover, you can email info@voiceprintwest.com. The voiceover community is great. It very, very supportive. People share information, friendly. It's a very happy community. People who do voiceovers love being in front of that mic for various reasons. And I'm so happy to be a part of it and love teaching with you, Nick. And we've had a long-standing relationship, a great teaching relationship, and we start again this fall next week. We took a little break over this summer. Everyone needs a break, and I'll leave it to you, Nick.
Well, I think thank you, and the feeling is very, very much mutual. I don't know how I got to be so lucky to become your partner in doing this stuff, but I thank God whatever I did, I did. But it really, to Terry's point, it is probably the best and most, I guess, community-oriented portion of the business. We just really, everybody loves what we do, and it's because it's based in our talent. It has nothing to do. I know so many on-camera people that have not only a right but an obligation to be neurotic, because you walk in the door and if they want somebody blonde and you're dark-haired, you're out of the running. If they want somebody taller and you're short, you're out of the running. If they want somebody older and you're young, you're out of the running. It has nothing to do with your talent. Here they have to hear what you do before they can make a judgment call. And it's all based in your talent. And the better you are at developing that talent, the better your chances are of working. And the best way to do that is start with a good solid foundation. So we would love to see you there. As Terry said, if you have any questions, send questions to me and they'll forward them. Just go to info@voiceprintwest.com. And if you have a specific question for me, they'll forward it to me and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. But in the meantime, the best way to get your questions answered is join us on next Wednesday night for the 3-week class and we'll get going.
Thank you, Nick. I know you're busy today, so am I. So let's say goodbye.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes,
Next
you
Wednesday.
shall.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.